Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning,
Good morning.
everybody. Um, I have had a migraine for the last 2 days, so hence the blue light glasses. So I encourage everyone to make sure you have blue light glasses if you're on the computer a lot, especially at the clinic when you guys are, sitting at the console and you're learning. Oh, you're not there yet. I'm sorry, confusing classes. When you get to clinicals, it's a good idea to make sure that you've got blue light glasses. Make sure that they, are plastic, which blue light glasses typically are. They're not going to be very expensive or, fancy prescription glasses. It really does help with the strain on the eye. Um, so I say that, guys, if my delivery today needs to, be revised a little bit, meaning if you want me to reword something, okay, please don't be afraid to say, hey, can you rephrase that a little bit to where it makes a little bit more sense to me? I'm okay with that. And I encourage you guys to do that so that we can have a discussion about it, right? Everyone learns a little bit differently and everyone hears the same word or the same concept a little bit differently, right? So my goal is to support you all. So please, please don't be shy um, with asking for that request. Okay. Couple things that I do. Let me switch screens. I want to go over things I want to go over here. Let me share this. Oh, you guys have. Okay. Um, during orientation, you guys, were you introduced to not only the Gurnick catalog and the Gurnick campus, global campus expectations, or what the expectations are for you as students and an idea of how the ASMRI program works? Did you guys get the student handbook or were you shown the link for the student handbook? Okay, awesome. How many read it? How many went through it? Be honest. Oh, good. A couple of you guys. Okay. I want to bring this attention to you guys down on page 9. I'm bringing this up because it happened in another class, not your class. You guys have been doing fantastic with adjusting and making sure that you're able to get everything done and, getting the hang of multiple classes, what that looks like, and getting your routine down. Okay. But in my other classes, they haven't been as great as you guys. And it hurts me. I'm limited, guys. I'm very limited. Remember how I said, match my energy, give me everything I can to go and bat for you, right? Give me all the resources so that I can support you and kind of go, and plead my case to my bosses why we need to, you know, um, maybe maneuver differently to make sure that we can do the best we can to support you guys. And so I want to bring your attention to the absence makeup policy, but so this information goes over if you missed clinic hours. It doesn't apply yet, right? Or if you happen to miss class. So I encourage you guys to read this. But on page 9, which is where I'm at, the assignments and quizzes and exams cannot be rescheduled, meaning I can't open them without a written attestation from a physician, meaning I have to have a doctor's note to reopen. Why is this? And why is it so strict? Um, if I don't have that, then you will receive a zero. The idea, guys, is because we're in such an accelerated program and because we are online, everything that we do, even me as your instructor, when I log in, when I grade your work, when I submit it to Jeji, all of that is recorded and reports are generated from that, right? To show accreditation that allows us to have this didactic distance learning course. Hey, even though we're far away, we're not in the classroom, everyone did show up. Everyone does have their camera on. We're engaging. We're recording the lecture to show, hey, we are all still in a live class, right? And along with that goes with the coursework. you have to complete that work within the time limit because we move so fast onto the next week's material, right? And so if we don't stay on top of the due dates, you easily fall behind, and then I don't have or the school doesn't have a record of your logged in submission. Does that make sense, guys? Your logged in submission for your assignments and your discussions and quizzes. So if you if you take your quiz and you have technical difficulties and it is 2 days before the quiz is due, can I reopen your quiz without a physician's note? Can I reopen it? I can fight to reopen it. Why? Because it hasn't closed yet. Does that make sense? The due date hasn't come up yet, and we're still getting an idea of making sure that our computers are working with Proctorio and it's doing everything it needs to do, right? So that's what I mean by giving me everything I can to go to bat for you. Now, if you email me, and nobody's done this here, but in my other classes, if you email me at 11:45 p.m. and you can't get into the quiz because Proctorio kicked you out, can I open it? No, I can't. So I encourage you guys now, early on in the program, develop good habits to make sure that you don't wait till the last minute to get your work done because then that drastically narrows my window of how much I can help you and troubleshoot and navigate, right? I don't want any of you guys to fall behind and receive zeros. Um, but I hope you guys can understand my hands are limited and it's hard sometimes because I want to just open it up and so I just wanted to share that with you guys. Um, like I said, this is in another class. I had some things come up, and so I shared the student handbook again. Reminded the class that I am very limited. I wanted to share that with you guys too, just so you don't run into any problems, maybe with future courses or future instructors. Okay, makes sense, guys. Any questions about that? No. Okay. So let's go over a couple things before we jump into the material. Now, last night we had oh, wrong date. Last night we concluded week 3 material, right? We had our quiz, our assignment, and our discussion due. So we're done with week 3. Week 4 opened yesterday on Monday, now on the 20th. And if you go to the following Monday, the 27th, that is when week 4 is due. Every week we have an assignment discussion and a quiz. That will never change, right? With the exception of midterm and final. So when you look at 27, you're like, okay, wait a minute, where's the quiz? Why does it not show the quiz? I didn't open it yet. I want to open it after lecture. In my other class, some students were taking their quiz before lecture. I'm like, wait a minute, we haven't even had class. How are you jumping into the quiz? So your quiz will open up after lecture today. Okay, guys, you'll have access to it, but that's why you don't see it here. But just know every Monday you're going to have your assignment discussion and your quiz. That will be due the following Monday of when I present and give lecture. Uh, you guys good with that? If for some reason you don't see it open or something went wonky with the settings, please email me. But you'll have access to it afterwards, after our lecture. Okay, so looking in week 4. For our weekly instructional breakdown, we've got begin with chapter 3, MRI at a glance, and we're still in chapter 1. Okay. Again, I've gone over your due dates when everything is due. The Clover learning videos. Okay. I have hyperlinks for easy access, right? So you're just going to click on this and you'll be directed right to the video. This week is 30 minutes worth of videos. Pace yourself, take your time. Okay. The time that you guys log in and watch these videos account for your lecture instruction time, right? So you do get credit for these in the sense of that fulfills your 3 point or not your 3.5, your 5 credit course for this course. Okay, it all calculates and adds in. So please make sure that you're watching your Clover Learning videos. If they give a video illustration, are you guys all? How many of you guys have not watched them, or are you guys all watching them? They give a video animation of what I'm saying, what the book is saying, and it kind of brings things to life. Are we liking them, guys? Clover Learning is something new that we've adopted, so or started to incorporate. Okay, good. So, yeah, make sure that you watch them. I've been meeting with a lot of you guys this past week and even yesterday for study tips. Study tips, you really like the cover. Oh, good. Thank you for that. Study tips on okay, we've got assignments, we've got discussions, we've got live lecture. Where do I focus my attention? Right? Where do I focus my attention? It's going to be all of it. And let me explain. The textbook, Clover Learning, my PowerPoints, and my live lecture, we're all saying the same thing. Have you guys picked up on that? We're all talking about hydrogen atoms. We're all talking about the net magnetization vector. However, we articulate differently. We say things a little bit differently. You may resonate with what the textbook is saying. And then when you are in lecture and you hear me talk about it in a little bit of a variation, sometimes the light bulb will go off. Sometimes not. Sometimes it'll go off after you've had lecture and you go and skim through the book again or you watch a Clover Learning video. The idea, guys, is we're all saying the same thing, but it all helps. Okay. Where are you going to focus your attention for the quiz and for the midterm and the final? Every week, and I apologize, nobody mentioned anything to me last week. I didn't upload week 3. I don't completely overlooked it, but you guys did fantastic on the quiz. But every week going forward, I've made a sticky note to make sure I don't forget to do this, but I create a study guide / class notes. Okay. So for week 4, you open this and you're going to see a study guide fill in the blank. I've designed this so that as I'm going through each lecture slide, you can actually get the answers to this and follow along with me and fill it in. Okay. Your quizzes are going to be based off of the concept itself. So, are you going to only focus on the book? No, you're going to take all of it in because we're all discussing the same concept, but we're saying it a little bit differently. Does that make sense, guys? Nothing confusing and nothing tricky. I want to give you guys all the tools that you need to be confident and feel comfortable with going into a quiz or an exam, okay? Which is why I create these study guides. Also, maybe make 2 copies. Fill it in during class or after class if you like to watch the recording and pause me, right? You can kind of take bite sizes at a time. You can watch for 20 minutes, take some notes, walk away, or come back to it maybe another day. Um, in order to test your readiness, and this is more applicable to the midterm, in order to test your readiness, fill in these blanks without looking at anything. Without looking at anything. How comfortable do you feel answering these questions? Are you confident in these answers? Okay. If the answer is yes, then you're ready for the quiz and the midterm and the final. If your answer is not quite, this is exactly where you know you need to study a little bit more. Does that make sense, guys? So it gives you a tool to test and gauge where you're comfortable and what you truly understand. And it also is a study tool to kind of guide you as we're going through everything. So I encourage everyone um, to print or access digitally this fill in the blank. Okay. Uh, the assignment for week 4, I wanted to go into. Let me open this. Zoom in. Okay, everyone can see my screen?
Hey, Miss Gray. I
Yes.
just wanted to mention, I couldn't find it on the um, Moodle,
You couldn't find the
the weekly, the week 4
study guide?
study guide. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Let me here before we jump into that. Let me minimize this. So this is, let's go back to week 4, Sacramento. If you're in Sacramento and you cannot see this, please let me know. Cannot see it as well. David, are you in Sacramento?
In San Jose.
Yes, I think it's
San
all
Jose.
San Jose.
Yeah, San Jose.
Okay, let me jump in over there.
I don't see it in any of the other weeks either.
You're going to see it. You're going to only see it week 1 and week 2. I just mentioned that I missed week 3 and I apologize. Nobody told me. Nobody mentioned that it wasn't there. So I just overlooked it. And okay, so San Jose, we don't see it. So let's
Yeah,
go to
for any of the
4.
weeks.
Okay. I'm going to check this link in the background. When we take a break, I'm going to make sure that and double check this link to make sure. Actually, let me just do it real quick because I want you guys to have access to it. Okay. Just bear with me 1 second. Let me switch here. Is everyone okay with the PDF files? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, San Jose, if you can please refresh your Moodle screen. You see it now, Alyssa? Thank you. Okay, perfect. Somebody said I don't see it for all the weeks. I haven't written them for all the weeks yet. I just took over this course, guys, and they weren't there before. I'm actually creating them for you because I think that they're really helpful and really valuable, and I want to give them to you. Okay? They will be available at the opening of each week. Does that make sense? You're very welcome.
Were sorry.
Go ahead.
So were there study guides for week 1 and 2?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in the San Jose cohort, so I don't see those ones either.
Did they not come over?
I'm in the Sacramento cohort, professor, and I don't see them for week 1 or 2 either.
Let me go back to share my screen. Okay, the reason why you'd see for week 1 and week 2, let me share my screen, and why it was a different format is because you guys completed it in the assignment form. Class lecture notes for assignment 1. So it wasn't a fill in the blank. I gave you guys the question prompts and you turn that in for an assignment. Does that make sense? So it's the same thing. Yeah. Only because it was week 1 and week 2 and it was the first week. And so I wanted to double up. What do I mean by that? I didn't want to bombard you guys with too much work because we were already combining week 1 and week 2, right? So I used the study guide and gave you the prompts that would help you with your quiz, and I also counted that for your assignment. Does that make sense? So that you guys got kind of an easier load. So do you have to? So that was week 1 and week 2. And week 3, I completely spaced it and nobody messaged me. Nobody emailed me, which is okay because you guys all did great. I looked at the average. So far, I checked in yesterday morning on everyone's quiz. You guys are at like a 97% class average for week or quiz 3. So you guys killed it without it. But every week you'll have them from here on out in the fill in the blank format to where you can follow along with lecture with me. Okay. Let me go back to week 4. And I appreciate your guys' patience. Like I said, there's some things that weren't in this course that I feel that I really want to give you and I feel are very important and critical to your learning. So I'm building them. Okay. So if you don't see it, please email me. Do you have to turn this in? Do you have to turn this study guide in? No. This is just a tool for you to prepare for your quiz. Okay? Now that we all have access to that, let's jump real quick back into week 4, this week's assignment. Remember, this week's assignment is going to be due. It's going to be due next Monday because we're going to lecture and cover that right now. Actually, let's just go back here. Assignment 4. Can everyone see the assignment on my screen? Okay. Let's go over the intro real quick. MRI is often taught as separate concepts. Hydrogen, B sub 0, which is our static field, pulses, T1 and T2. But in reality, these events are all connected and occur as one continuous process. But we have to study them individually, right? Which is why it's normal to feel a little bit discombobulated, a little bit disconnected, because you're like, well, wait a minute. We were here, now we're here. Trust me, guys, it'll come together. So using this week's lecture, which is what I'm going to go over today, I want you to create a concept map or flow chart. You can draw this just on a piece of note paper, and you'll take a picture and you'll upload it as a PDF. So what I want you to do is draw a diagram. You could just have a word, or you can draw a schematic of the machine and write B sub 0 and write a little box around that. And then you're going to draw an arrow. You're going to draw an arrow to the next concept. Okay. So what that means is these are the concepts. So you're going to use the diagram and tell me what's happening and why it's happening. I don't want this to be an essay form. I don't want it to be, you guys take a lot of time writing exactly all the steps. Okay. So let's go over this. Each concept one at a time. Please write this down right now. Forget about number 8. Scratch 8. I don't want you to write 8. I don't want you to write about 8. I don't want you to write about 10. I'm sorry. I don't want you to write about 11, 12, or 13.
So in total, you only want us to have 9.
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually 10. Oh no, you're right, 9, because I got rid of 8. Yes. Why am I getting rid of these? Because we've talked about the transverse magnetization, right? The net magnetization vector, but I don't want to go into free induction decay yet. We're not there. We're going to go over when we touch on pulse sequences and the RF pulse a little bit more. Same thing with image contrast, and the tissue differences. I've introduced it, right? I've introduced that there is a difference and we can visually see the difference. And I've alluded and hinted to the fact that the RF pulse is going to dictate that, but I don't want to go there yet. Make sense? We got to still build our foundation. Okay. So that's why I don't want you to go over that. So we're going to get rid of 8. We're going to get rid of 11, 12, and 13. Okay. Are we good on the assignment? So draw a picture. Give me a few words. Give me a few words to let me know that when you start with the hydrogen, you're going to draw maybe like an H plus. Okay, that's a symbol for hydrogen. And then you're going to draw like the magnet. If you don't want to draw the magnet, you can just write B sub 0. You'll put a box around hydrogen and you'll draw an arrow. And then you would write B sub 0 and you can draw a little box there. And then you'll show me what with hydrogen. You could show me parallel and anti-parallel. You can draw arrows up and draw arrows down. Does that make sense, guys? And then that's it. Give me 1 or 2 words. What's happening? They're aligning parallel or anti-parallel. Why is it happening? Well, because it's in the presence of B sub 0. Make sense? Okay. I wanted to do this assignment because we all learn differently. Some of us are visual learners. I want to touch on everything. I want to touch on the auditory. I want to touch on the tactile, okay? And I want to touch on the visual. So draw me a picture. I love pictures. Be creative, okay? This assignment is meant to zoom out a little bit and give you an overall picture. And I don't want it to be stressful and I don't want it to be too time consuming, okay? If you have any questions on the assignment, let me know. Okay. All right, guys. We are now ready to jump in. Before we jump into the material, Sydney, go ahead.
For the discussion for this week, it shows, at least for me, 2 different prompts. So I just wanted to make sure which
Yes.
one you were wanting.
Yes. Let's go. So, how many of you guys, some of you guys, I sent a message when I was grading your assignments and I said, please resubmit it. I need a little bit more detail. Some of you guys had that. Some of you didn't. Now we're going to go backwards. I only want you to explain MRI in 3 sentences. If you had to explain MRI in 3 sentences, what 3 sentences would you write? I want it condensed. You're going to see this is a little bit difficult, right? Because we've already covered so much material. So if you're talking about MRI and you're explaining MRI, what are you going to write about? Just 3 sentences. That's the first part of the discussion. The second prompt for the remainder of the 5 points, each discussion is worth 10 points every week. For the second part, you're going to pick a sentence from a classmate and share how this particular sentence helped refine your understanding of how MRI works. Or, I didn't write this, but you can also write the question left you wondering. The question or the sentence left you wondering, and it didn't really cover a whole lot. Does that make sense? Okay. You're going to respond. You're going to click on my discussion and you're going to respond. Remember, you won't be able to see classmates' responses until you post first. You got to post first. This is because it's in a Q&A format. Gianna, go ahead.
Hi, Miss Gray. I think it's because when you click the discussion, it shows another prompt, like a different question, like about the motion of hydrogen atoms.
Okay. I will, and that's for what campus are you?
Okay.
San Jose. Okay. I'll go through and look at that after class. Thank you for letting me know. This is the prompt you're going to follow. Okay, so I'll make sure that prompt is clear at the end of class. Okay, but this is the prompt you're going to follow. Is everyone clear on this? Only 3 sentences. That's it. Only 3 sentences. For SAC as well. Okay. Why is it showing the other one for you guys. Do you see how my screen only shows one prompt? I gotta look behind the scenes, guys. Sometimes
If you
Moodle.
like click on, I'm sorry, if you like click on discussion 4, like at the bottom, yeah, like right there, it pops up as another question. Yeah.
Whoa. Why did it do that? Yeah, this was from the previous instructor. Don't follow this prompt, guys, okay? You're going to follow my prompt. I'm going to figure out how to delete this. I don't know why it's importing that. That's bizarre. Because you see my prompt here. I wrote the prompt. So I'll figure that out in the background, guys. Follow this prompt, okay? Does that make sense? Just go over this one and I'll figure out Moodle's shenanigans at the end of class. Okay, before we jump into this week's material, I want to go over and recap last week. So week 3, the Clover learning videos we watched were alignment and the net magnetization vector, right? So it just reiterated the fact that what we already know, we have to have B sub 0 and we have to have the alignment of hydrogen atoms, right? In order to generate an MRI image. And it's not so much the fact that we need a hydrogen atom, but what you guys picked up from your assignment that you turned in last night, you guys had to tell me, which was, you guys have given me phenomenal answers thus far that I was able to read. I haven't been able to read all of them yet, but you guys had to tell me in your own words what the net magnetization vector is. And you guys did great. And then describe how the magnetic field strength affects that net magnetization, right? We're going to build on that a little bit more today. I'm going to build a little bit more today. So we learned that, again, it's not so much that we're tapping into one hydrogen to generate that signal, but we need a net amount. We need a group. Does that make sense? We need a volume, a group of these guys. And we get that when we are introduced, when the body's introduced to the main magnetic field. And that group kind of gets a little bit larger when we jump to a 3.0 Tesla, right? Okay. We also last week talked about in our discussion that when we apply an RF pulse, when we apply the RF pulse, this is the crucial step that we need to generate that image. That it's the alignment, yes, but it's the disturbance of that alignment that gives us the ability to generate MRI images, right? Okay. So now for this week, we're going to build on that. We're going to leave RF pulses down because remember, I'm just introducing you to the key concepts. We're going to have a dedicated week after midterm that just zeroes in on the RF pulse, okay? And further builds our understanding of the RF pulse sequences, T1 and T2 differences, and contrast differences with respects to different tissues, different organs in the body, right? Which is why I had you get rid of it on the assignment for this week, okay? Because we're not there yet. We're going to get there after midterm. Does that make sense? Okay. So now let's stop the screen. Any questions? Oh, that. Any questions, guys? So now that we have gone over that, we are now going to connect a little bit more, We're going to connect further to refine understanding of the hydrogen atom and the main magnetic field B sub zero. And we're going to add in more detail about relaxation, right? Because what we learned is that, yes, we absolutely, like I just mentioned, we have to have that alignment. We zone in on the net magnetization, the collective group, but now we have to discuss relaxation a little bit more, okay? Because it is the relaxation that gives us the ability to generate multiple images, multiple slices. Why do I need that? Because we're taking a slice at a time. And I have to excite that slice and take it away to record that signal. And that echo is what we call the signal. And then I have to excite it again and again and again and again and again and again and again, which is why MRI takes so long. You guys with me on that? So we need to look at those steps. So hydrogen atom in the main magnetic field B sub zero. Recap. We know this. Hydrogen protons behave like tiny magnets due to its spinning positive charge. And when exposed to the magnetic field, the protons have that alignment and they're going to respond to an external force. Hydrogen atoms are going to respond to an external force. If we don't have B sub zero, would the hydrogen atoms still respond to an external force? They would, technically, but in a random, crazy fashion that we would never be able to detect, right? Because we have to have them aligned, and we have to all have them aligned, right? In the absence of B sub zero, we discussed that those hydrogen atoms are random. They're moving random. And so, yeah, we can give an RF pulse, but which one are we looking at? Does that make sense? How are we tapping in, right? We can't. So we need that. And then the proton alignment being parallel or anti-parallel, we discussed. And that there's energy. There's energy. This alignment creates distinct energy states that form the basis of the MR signal. What do I mean by form the basis? We're tapping into the net magnetization of those hydrogen atoms. Okay? Without B sub zero, like I mentioned, if we don't have B sub zero, this is what it looks like. So like I said, yeah, we can give the RF pulse, but how are we going to generate a signal? We've got to have B sub zero. We've got to have this alignment. The net magnetization, and don't be confused with this M. This is still net magnetization vector. Depends on the author, guys. It just depends on the author. Some authors are laser, and they're just going to call it M. It's still the net magnetization vector, okay? The small excess of parallel protons produces a measurable net magnetization vector aligned with B sub zero. And here is the starting point for all MR signal generation. Now, next level of the onion, next peel back. Moving from net magnetization to the MR signal, we need relaxation. Why do we need relaxation to generate an image? Why do we need this? Let's go over this step by step. At equilibrium, M, the net magnetization, points along B sub zero. In this state, we can't detect anything. We can't detect anything when everything is aligned. The receiver coil only senses magnetization rotating in the transverse plane. What is the transverse plane? Do you remember me talking about it a little bit? Let me draw a little side picture here. You guys should have seen this in your textbook. This is the transverse plane here. And if I have my net magnetization vector, I cannot generate a signal. I cannot generate a signal with the net magnetization in this position, being parallel with the magnetic field. Does that make sense? I have to disturb the alignment. And how do I disturb the alignment? What do I do? What do we do, guys? How do we disturb the alignment? What
Like when you
energy?
give the RF pulse?
Yes, yes. I disturb this alignment with a massive amount of energy, and I give it an RF pulse. And when I give the RF pulse, the amount of energy that I'm forcing in with that RF pulse is going to take the NMV and tip it into the transverse plane. And so now my hydrogen are in the transverse plane. Now, this is conceptual, meaning we don't see this happening, right? The physicists have done all of this calculations and figured all this out, and the creation of MRI, those guys did it. You and I are going to go over the mechanism of how we generate the MR signal. And so this is the mechanism, and it's hard to kind of visualize because we can't see it, right? We can't look into the body, but this is what is happening. So draw pictures on your notes, draw your own pictures of how this is going to make sense for you. Okay. Now, I'm going to take away these RF pulse. And when I take it away, there's no more energy forcing the net magnetization into the transverse plane. And those hydrogen atoms are going to go back to equilibrium. They don't have a choice. They have to do that. Why? Physics and chemistry. If you want to go over the physics and chemistry with me after class, I'll be happy to do that. That's not applicable to MRI. Well, it's not applicable to our scope of practice for your board exam. On the nitty gritty, on the zoomed in of the proton, the hydrogen molecule, and energetically why it's going back. But just know it's going to always go back, has to go back. It's a law, it's a phenomenon. Chemistry and physics says it will. When it goes back, that hydrogen net magnetization vector is going to give me the signal. And this signal is captured in the receiver coil. Does that make sense? Okay. Draw a picture. Stick with this for a little bit. I like to say marinate with it a little bit, right? Look at it and see exactly what's happening. Okay. Nicholas, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a quick question regarding this signal when it's relaxing.
Mhm.
So why does it release the signal when it's relaxing aside from when it's like really excited, like right off the bat?
Because there's a transfer of the energy, which we're going to go over in the next slide. There's a
Oh, got it.
transfer of that energy. It can't hold it. It's so
Yeah.
powerful and so
Mhm.
strong. There's forces at play here. The hydrogen want to relax, and that energy has to go somewhere. So it's released. And
I
this
see.
is the basis of T1. Oh, let's change the color. This is the basis of the difference between T1 and T2. Oh my goodness gracious. Sorry, guys. Stop it. Oh, goodness. There we go. T1 and T2. Okay. We're going to go over it in the next couple slides. So let's go over my notes here. An RF pulse at the Larmor frequency. We are going to revisit Larmor frequency more in detail. Right now, you guys know that the Larmor frequency is a frequency that is used, a specific number that is used to tune in to what is being delivered of the RF pulse into the hydrogen. It's matching, right? We're going to go over that in much more detail. At the RF pulse at a Larmor frequency, it's going to tip the magnetization away from B sub 0 into the transverse plane. And now M rotates, and the coil detects this rotation as the MR signal. We're not going to go over free induction yet. Not yet. Okay? Without relaxation, we only get one signal and nothing more. But we're 3D volume human body, and we want multiple slices to scroll through. How many of you guys have had the opportunity to look through an MRI sequence and see, if you scroll your mouse, you start at the top of the head and you scroll all the way down to the chin? Those are slices, and that requires excitation and relaxation for every single slice. You guys with me on there? On that? Okay. Later in the program, and as we progress through physics, and later in this course, we're going to introduce that concept as TR, time to repetition. You're going to dictate when you obtain those slices. And that time is going to dictate what your image looks like. And that gives us the foundation and understanding of different contrasts. Okay, we're not there yet. It's exciting, guys. I promise I'm going to give you all the fun stuff, but we're not there yet. We got to go over the basics. Okay, so the different tissues relax at different speeds. I just gave you that hint. Different tissues relax at different speeds. And by choosing when to collect the signal during relaxation, we highlight specific tissue. Does that make sense? Okay. This is how MRI creates contrast without radiation. X-ray and CT creates the contrast using radiation, because when an X-ray beam and the photons of the X-ray beam are deposited and enter into the body, they pass through air and don't show up, and they are absorbed in the bone, and it does show up and it looks white. That's why CT and X-ray, you only have black and white. How many of you guys have looked at a CT or an X-ray image before? Okay, this is why. The contrast is created with radiation because the radiation is being absorbed or not absorbed. MRI is so phenomenal, and why you guys all chose MRI, because it's amazing. And we're amazing, and what we do is amazing, right? We create contrast with magnets, non-ionizing radiation, which means we're not going to cause cancer, because radiation has shown to break genetic structures, the DNA helix, and cause damage. So why do we still use it? I'll get to you, Bardo, in 1 second. Why are we still using it? Because it's useful. We just have to limit how much we're using it. But you'll see in the clinic very soon, guys, that physicians love MRI. They want MRIs for everything. And this is one of the reasons why. 2, you have fantastic resolution that you can't have with CT or X-ray. Bardo, go ahead.
Yes. So when we're talking about contrast, it's contrast between different tissues, which is then what gives you that black and white image. Is that
Yes.
what we're talking about?
Yes. Not
Okay.
to be confused with imaging injectable contrast.
Got it.
Yes.
Thank
Very
you.
different. Yeah, yeah. So if you guys have a little bit of a background in MRI, and Bardo just hinted to me that he probably does a little bit, which is why he's like, wait a minute, well, what contrast are you talking about? Why do we use contrast to signify or to name what we're injecting intravenously into our patients? Well, because it alters contrast, Bardo. It's going to alter the contrast of the image. Contrast agents, Magnavist, doTERRA. You, as technologists, are going to be trained to inject contrast into your patient's veins. That contrast is going to alter the image contrast. Make sense, guys? And this is why MRI is the best. Well, it gives us the ability to look at pathology. Pathology, diseased tissue versus normal tissue. Okay? Okay. We are 50 minutes in. Let's take a break here before we jump into the nitty-gritty and specifics of relaxation. Okay, guys? Let's take a 10. It's actually really 9. Come back top of the hour. Come back at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll jump into relaxation. Okay, guys, let's come back. Okay, I wanted to share with you one of your classmates asked about the IV training. You guys will get that information from the clinical team next quarter. Next quarter, okay? Um, oh, I missed a couple comments. Is the physics 1 atomic structure under week 4 only available to the instructor? No, Shayna. Stay if you don't mind staying after class. Let's go over that. You guys should all see the same view I see when we're in Moodle. So if you're not, stay after class. Okay. Let's jump into relaxation more. Okay. We're almost done, guys. Almost done. What is relaxation? It's how the protons are going to return to equilibrium after excitation. And it is the process by which they return after being disturbed by the RF pulse. Okay? There is a process to the relaxation, which we're going to cover. The process is categorized and defined and quantified as either being T1 longitudinal relaxation or T2 transverse relaxation. Now, I introduced this a little bit at the beginning, but we're going to cover it a little bit more. T1 is defined as a recovery of the magnetization along the direction of B sub 0. Energy exchange between protons in the surrounding lattice, also called spin lattice relaxation. This is important to know because your ARRT board exam, testing your knowledge, is either going to refer to it as T1, it will refer to it maybe as longitudinal relaxation, or it will refer to as spin lattice relaxation. They are all synonymous, right? Why do they use 3 different terms that are essentially synonymous to describe T1 or to really to describe the type of relaxation rate? Because it's also giving you an indication of its behavior. Its behavior. And that behavior is coined and labeled and termed as T1. That behavior is relaxation. But more specifically, it is relaxation longitudinally. And in order to understand the relaxation in the longitudinal plane energetically, we quantify that behavior and we peel another layer of the onion and we say that the longitudinal relaxation energetically is a spin lattice relaxation, which we'll get to. Okay, does that make sense? That's why we have the three different ways to talk about relaxation when we're talking about T1. Now, there is the other relaxation, which is T2. T2. This relaxation is in the transverse. Well, wait a minute. How can I have 2 relaxations when it's still the net magnetization just returning back to equilibrium? Those of you that are on that track and asking how and why, we're going to get there in the next slide. Just focus on making sure that you write down the difference and distinction between T1 and T2, okay? T2's transverse relaxation is a loss of phase coherence perpendicular to B sub 0. Don't be intimidated by this definition. Just write it down for now so that you can revisit and you can marinate on it, okay? Proton spins dephase due to the local field inhomogeneities. We're going to talk about what local field inhomogeneities mean later in the course. Also called spin relaxation, not spin lattice, spin spin relaxation. So we know we have to have relaxation in order to generate the MR signal. And the next layer to that relaxation is that when those protons, the hydrogen atoms, return back to equilibrium, when they go back, when they start here, and we've tipped them here, and they go back, they are relaxing, and that relaxation is defined as either T1 or T2. Stick with me, guys. To help us understand why we have two different relaxations, we have to go into the energy. We have to go into the energy. How and why energy exchange is central to generating the MR signal. It's the driving force behind the signal. So let's explore that. What exactly do I mean by energy, and what are we talking about? In MRI, we deliberately add energy to the body's hydrogen protons using the RF pulse, which is what I shared in the beginning, right? Understanding what's happening to the energy and why it must be exchanged is key to understanding how MRI works. Where does this energy come from? The RF pulse. The RF pulse that is delivered at the Larmor frequency. The protons are going to absorb this energy and jump from a low energy state aligned with B sub 0 to a higher energy state also against B sub 0. Okay. I met with a student who was a little bit confused, and I can see why. They were confused with regards to, wait a minute, we talked about anti-parallel and we talked about parallel, and now we're talking about two different levels of energy state between the hydrogen. Don't confuse the two. They're not connected, essentially, right? We have an energy level, quote unquote, with the hydrogen alignment introduced with B sub 0. Not to be confused with the energy that is absorbed, per se, when we deliver that RF pulse. Okay? You guys with me on that? Okay. Why must we have? Remember my key buzzwords, guys. Please, when you're studying, ask yourself where and why and how. If you do this, you will understand the concept and you won't be memorizing the information I share. Why must energy be exchanged? High energy state is unstable. Remember how I said the hydrogen has no choice but to go back? It's not a stable state. And those of you that are wanting to know what's stable and unstable, that would require us to go into chemistry and go into electrons and go into valence electrons and bonding and so on and so forth, which is outside of our scope of practice. You're going to experience, guys, that some of your whys and your hows, you want to go a little bit deeper, but it's outside of our scope. I'll be happy to go through it again with you because I do have that chemistry and that physics background, but I don't want to overwhelm your brain. It's not applicable to us. Does that make sense? So I'm not skipping over information on purpose. I'm skipping over finite details as to why the energy state is unstable because it's not within our realm. It's not within our scope, okay? And you won't be tested on it. You will be tested on energy transfer, yes, on your board exam, and that energy transfer has to do with an exchange of T1 and T2, but not unstable energy. Protons naturally want to return back to equilibrium, the lowest energy configuration, and this return process is relaxation. And it happens in two ways, which is what we just discussed, T1 and T2. So why does this matter for imaging? The signal we detect comes directly from the energy exchange, and as protons release the energy and lose coherence, they emit a radio frequency signal that our coils can measure. Wait a minute. I gave an RF radio frequency signal pulse, right? Did you guys catch that? And now the hydrogen atoms are giving me and emitting a radio frequency signal. It's just an energy exchange. It's an energy exchange. I initially used the RF pulse to push them, excite them, and push them. And they held on to that energy. Now, when they relax back to equilibrium, they're giving it back. And this is how we capture the signal. Does that make sense? Okay. Without energy exchange, there is no signal. And if I have no signal, I have no image. No image. Let's go into those two energy exchanges, T1 and T2, and how they contribute to the signal and to contrast. When I give the RF pulse, and those hydrogen are absorbing the energy, and they hold on to the energy, the RF excitation pushes from the low energy, parallel with V sub 0, into a higher energy, anti-parallel. This absorbed energy must go somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. Protons are going to release the energy as heat to the surrounding molecules, the lattice, through dipole-dipole interactions. Molecular tumbling at the Larmor frequency facilitates this transfer most effectively. All this is saying is that when I match and give at the Larmor frequency, energetically, the hydrogen, they're going to initially hold on to it, but then they have to release it. They can't hold on to it forever. They're going to want to return back to equilibrium. I need them to return back to equilibrium to get that signal. T1 is true energy exchange. Is true energy exchange, meaning that the spin system loses the energy to the environment. Without this transfer, longitudinal magnetization cannot recover. No subsequent excitation is possible. Longitudinal magnetization cannot recover, meaning it's not going to go back and align back to V sub 0. T2, energy redistributing amongst the spins. After excitation, the protons precess together in phase, but neighboring spins, neighboring hydrogen. Remember, we're using net magnetization, meaning a group of hydrogen. So the neighboring hydrogen spins create local field variations that cause each proton to precess at slightly different speeds. And so there is an energy exchange between protons. And we define this as spin-spin interactions. So they don't lose, the energy is not lost to the environment. The energy is lost between hydrogen interaction between each other. One speeds up while another slows down, and the total energy stays constant, but the phase order is lost. In Physics 1 and in Physical Principles, next quarter and the quarter after, you're going to dive deep into phase. Kevin goes very deep into phase. Believe it or not, there are 50 more layers to the onion talking about phase. We're not there yet. We're not there. Okay? Let me see what the classmate just said. Is it essentially capturing the bounce back energy? Yes. You can categorize it and define it that way. Yes. Ty, go ahead.
Yeah, so up to now, I've been thinking about the way the protons respond to the RF pulses is that that magnetic moment is being pushed into the perpendicular plane, into the transverse plane.
Mhm.
So my question is about the first thing under T1, about it going to anti-parallel, which implies to me that it's going all the way 180 degrees to the opposite direction of B naught. So it's different than what my understanding was. Does that make sense?
Ty, yes, it does make sense. I see where you're going. And Ty, we get into that heavily when we go into pulse sequences. Stay with me, guys, for a minute. We're gonna clarify what Ty just mentioned. As we progress through the program, we are going to define and quantify and dive deep into RF pulse. We tip the transverse magnetization 90 degrees if we are running what we call a spin echo sequence. How far we tip that transverse magnetization into the transverse or the invert using 180 degrees is going to dictate different contrasts. So Ty, I see where you're going. Don't go there yet. The book may introduce this a little bit, the pulse sequence types. But believe it or not, guys, we're going to deliver RF pulses at varying degrees. And when we do that, we're tipping that transverse magnetization into different positions. And those different positions give us the ability to take different or record different contrasts. Don't go there yet. This is already heavy enough what I'm giving you guys. So don't go there yet, but you're on the right track. And we'll get there. We'll get there, guys. Okay. So T2, here's the big thing, guys, the difference. T2 is not energy loss, quote unquote, like T1. It is the fact that the signal disappears because individual spin vectors cancel each other out. Stick with that for now. It's not going to quite make sense. You've got to sit with it, check your notes, check your reading and the Clover, and then schedule office hours with me so that we can refine, or I can go over it again with you. Okay. This is the first time you're being introduced to this different language. Okay. And so you have to sit with the terminology for a little bit and sit with what I'm saying, what this key insight is. Start with understanding the difference between T1 and T2. And you could tell me, okay, I understand the difference between T1. I can recite that, yes, T1 is a recovery back to the longitudinal or back to the position, longitudinal alignment, and it's releasing the energy. And I can tell you that T2 is the energy exchange where they are bombarding, and it's the hydrogen bumping into each other. And we define that as spin-spin. Well, what's really happening? What's really happening? That takes time. It takes time for you guys to study and go over that. Bryden, does T2 relate more to randomness versus energy? It's not randomness. Let me explain it like this, T2. You might have this analogy, guys, later. And I'm going a little bit further ahead because Kevin's going to cover this in your physics 1 and physical principles. But I want to give you this analogy. If you're in New York, and if you're on the East Coast, and if you're on the West Coast, okay, there's a time difference, right? There's a time difference. What are they, ahead 3 hours than we are? But are we still on a 24-hour clock system? Are there still only 24 hours in the day? But they're ahead of us. That is a phase difference. Does that make sense? That's the difference. So with T2, they are relaxing at different phases. They're at different phase order. The phase order is lost. Write that analogy down, see if that helps, and we'll continue to uncover and peel back more layers to where it makes sense. Right now, just get familiar with the terminology and the definitions I'm giving. Okay, guys? It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm giving you guys a lot, but you gotta, this is why reading is so important, the textbook, and why the Clover learning is so important, because it all comes together with lecture. Energy transfer occurs because of thermodynamics of tissue contrast. What do I mean by thermodynamics and tissue contrast? Muscle versus fat versus bone. It all behaves differently. The RF pushes the protons into this higher state. It's unstable, and nature always seeks the lowest energy state. And so the energy transfer is simply the system returning back to equilibrium. So here's another analogy. An RF pulse is like pushing the ball uphill. Relaxation is the ball rolling back down. And so T1, the ball reaches the bottom and energy is released. But T2, the ball loses its spin along the way and coherence is lost. These are new words. New words. Take notes. Take notes, okay? How does this create contrast in the image? Different tissues have different molecular environments and therefore different rates of energy transfer. And like I just gave you, the idea that fat, muscle, bone, water, CSF, they all are going to recover at different times. We're going to stop there. I know your brain wants to go more, but we have to stop there. We're not there yet. Because tissues relax at different rates, we can choose when to listen to the signal. We get to choose when to listen to the signal. And the timing choice is what creates the MR contrast. Does that make sense? The timing of when we listen to that relaxation is what gives the difference in contrast. This is another slide showing you the difference between the T1 and T2, but the point that I want to bring up, and this is very important and very confusing, so I want you to sit with this for a little bit, is this right here. It's happening simultaneously. Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We just defined T1 and T2, and they're doing different things, and they're relaxing different ways. It happens simultaneously. Okay? Both processes begin the instant the RF pulse ends, and together they shape the MR signal, which determines the contrast. Okay? We're going to build on the simultaneous when we go into contrast later in the quarter and our RF pulse in that timing. Okay? This is just introduction, guys. I give you a little bit more context as a deeper dive into the longitudinal and the transverse plane, what is actually happening. After the RF excitation tips the net magnetization vector away from B sub 0, T1 relaxation is the process of M recovering back along the longitudinal plane. The mechanism is that the protons release the absorbed energy to the surrounding molecular lattice through thermal interactions. The rate depends on the tissue composition. Just like I said, fat and muscle are going to relax at different speeds. T2, spin, spin. Remember, T1 is spin lattice. T2, spin, spin. After the excitation, the protons initially process in phase. But then T2 relaxation is the loss of this phase coherence in the transverse plane X and Y. And we record that too. So not only are we recording the signal as they relax back to the longitudinal plane, we are also recording the signal of the phase coherence. We're doing both at the same time. And both of those give us the contrast. The mechanism behind this is that the neighboring protons create a tiny local magnetic field variations, and this causes individual spins to precess at slightly different frequencies, leading to dephasing. Okay, I see some of the light bulbs going off for you guys. It's starting to make a little bit more sense. The more we talk about it and the more we chip away at it, the more it makes sense, which is why I've given you an introductory and a little bit of a deep dive, even though we're not there yet with intro. Okay, I wanted to give you a little bit deeper. Why it matters, because the MR signal is generated from the transverse magnetization. We define that as FID, which is the free induction decay. We'll get there. As protons dephase, the signal decays, and T2 defines how fast. Okay? This controls the time to echo, selection, and tissue contrast weighting. This is a new term that you haven't heard. Time to echo. Remember how in the previous slide I said that we get to determine when we hear that signal? We as technologists control when we hear that signal. And the parameter that allows us to control that on the console, on the MRI console, on the computer itself, you and I, type in a TE value, which is time to echo. And we tell those hydrogen when to give us that signal. And when we do so, it's going to give us tissue contrast weighting. So linking the relaxation to hydrogen and B sub zero, we've got the RF excitation, we have the energy absorption, and now we have T1 recovery and T2 dephasing. Another term to peel back the layer of the onion. These are both relaxation. Both of these are relaxation. And they happen simultaneously. But the behavior is different. One is a recovery, going back, and one is dephasing, where the spin coherence is lost as protons interact with each other and reduce the transverse signal. I gave you guys a lot. I gave you a lot. Vincent, go ahead.
So dephasing, and sorry if I missed this earlier, dephasing essentially assumes that there was phasing at the point of RF pulse.
Yes.
At the RF pulse.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, there was phase. The terminology is there was phase coherence.
Phase coherence. Okay.
Yes. And when I take that RF pulse away to record the signal and the recovery of the longitudinal, right, which is defined as T1, I also lose that phase coherence and I'm capturing dephasing. That is also another signal.
Okay. Yep.
And they're happening at the same time. Excellent, Vincent. Excellent. Nicholas, go ahead.
Yes, so I know we didn't really talk about this too much because it should be like later on in the in this class. But regarding like echoes and knocking it to 180, is that still considered when it's T2 relaxing, is that still considered T2 if it's like 180 compared to
Excellent, Nicholas. Excellent. Yes. Okay, let me give you a little hint because we're not there yet. And you guys are going to be so tired of me saying we're not there yet. We're not there yet. I love the enthusiasm because you guys make me happy. You guys can see I'm a total nerd. I get excited for physics and I get excited for MRI. When I tip it into 180 degrees, that transverse magnetization, we call that an inversion recovery pulse. And why do we do that, Nicholas? Why do we do 180? because I can cancel the signal from fat or water. So, Nicholas, not only am I canceling the signal, I'm going to enhance the T2 and see what that looks like. Okay, that's a little sneak peek because I see where you're going, Nicholas. Yes, to answer your question, yes, that would be still considered T2. I can tap into the T2, the dephasing of the hydrogen, and I can pinpoint whether I wanted to highlight in the fat or whether I wanted to highlight into water. And this allows us to see pathology. So exciting, guys. There's so much more. I wish I could throw it all at you guys and give it to you now, but if I did, you probably would all decide not to do MRI. I can't do it. David, go ahead.
So when during the relaxation process for any given proton at any given time, I know that they're all experiencing T1 and T2, but are only certain protons, like an X amount of protons experiencing T1, and then some protons are experiencing T2, or are they all experiencing T1 and T2 at the same time?
They're all experiencing, because remember, we're tapping into the net magnetization.
Okay.
So we're tapping into the volume, all of them, right? But T1 and T2 happen simultaneously. They're going to want to go back to equilibrium. They're going to want to go back to be sub-zero. And when they do, both of those are happening at the same time. I see where you're going. It's not a separate set of hydrogen that are just going to have dephasing coherence, and then not just a separate set of hydrogen that are going to have that T1. No, it's the net magnetization. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, guys. In summary, I would love to keep going, but I'm going to fry your brains. You guys are going to tune me out. Hydrogen aligned with the main magnetic field, creating distinct energy states, and after RF excitation, that relaxation process restores equilibrium. We went over T1 and T2. Next steps for later on and a little bit next week is that we are going to explore tissue-specific T1 and T2 values very, very generally, because you're going to have that later in the program. Understanding relaxation differences create image contrast, okay? And that we are going to later connect relaxation to a pulse sequence design. And Nicholas, that's where we get into the difference between a 30-degree RF pulse versus a 45 versus a 90 versus a 180. Okay? You guys have been amazing. Thank you for a great class. Wait, don't leave yet. Remember, so the remainder of class, the remainder of our clock hours, if you will, you got to watch Clover. You guys were all here for class taking notes. You got to do your assignment. You got to do your discussion and your quiz on time, because that allows us to calculate and count your active time online and engagement for the whole quarter, so you guys finish with the credit hours. So make sure you get all your work done on time. Okay, email me if you have any questions. Sit with this. I gave you a lot. Sit with this for a little bit. Okay, guys, refine your notes, and I'll be here if you have any questions. Okay, you guys are all set. I've got your attendance recorded. Bo, you have a meeting with me at 12. Absolutely, you can stay after. We can meet early. You're very welcome, guys. My pleasure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good week, guys. Study hard. Study. It's a lot. It's a lot to go over. And I'm giving you a whole foreign language. Okay. I'm going to stop. You're welcome, guys. I'm going to stop the recording so that the video starts to process.